Welcome, everyone, to the Pick Six podcast, where we discuss the biggest stories in college football. I'm your host, Chris Chang, and as a reminder, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It really helps get us up and out there into the interwebs. Also, please remember, send us your story ideas to the pick6guys@gmail.com. Email in the description below. We want to know, what do you guys want to see and hear us talk about, right? Okay, so with week 2, we were supposed to get a boring, go through the motions slate. But a bunch of upsets took place, and now we have an incredible week 3 that is going to be exponentially more interesting. And of course, we have to start off with our Canes. We've got the number 18. I can't even believe I'm saying that, but I mean, it is what it is. The number 18 USF Bulls coming to Miami to take on our Canes. I think USF, one, absolutely should be ranked higher than what they are. UCF is the only team in the nation to beat 2 ranked teams, and through weeks 1 and 2, Byron Brown leads the team in rushing yards, completing 65% of his throws versus AP top 25 teams. He has here's a crazy stat: 0 picks in the last 192 throwing attempts. That's wild. The Bulls are also coming in with 33 seniors, so they are locked and loaded. They are ready for this moment, I think. Bulls, USF has been ranked for the first time in 7 years. So it's a big moment for the program. I don't think they're going to come in here sleeping. I don't think they're going to come in here overly confident. I think this is a team that believes that they can win. Will they? Not quite sure. USF, however, is struggling against the run, giving up 4.3 rushing yards a carry. Their front seven are not as reliable as their secondary has. Their secondary has been. Actually, if you look back at last week when they played the Gators, who they upset in the Swamp, DJ Lagway was only pressured on 3 dropbacks last week, and none of them, not a single one of those pressures, came from the line. They all came from a blitz package, whether it was a linebacker, a nickel, or a cornerback. Since starting at UGA in 2023, only 5 other quarterbacks graded better than Carson Beck in the pocket. And here's a fun fact: all 5 are in the NFL right now. So right now, currently, since 2023, no one has rated better in the pocket than Carson Beck. So if you combine USF's weak ability to pressure and Beck's success rate in a clean pocket, things can get pretty ugly for the Bulls early on. But the woes won't just stop there on the defensive side of the ball for USF. The Bulls have had the 10th worst running blocking grade. Miami has had the 2nd best run defensive grade. So you've got their weakness matched with our strength. Going to be a nasty combination with Ruben Bain and Mesidor bookending that line. It's going to be a rough day for Byron Brown, I think, unless he can somehow wiggle his way out. But I don't think this is a good matchup for the Bulls. USF likes to play an up-tempo kind of rhythm in their offense. They're going to try and be quick, get the ball, play as many plays as they can out, and try and wear down the defense. But I don't think it's going to be enough to slow down that ferocious Miami D line. I think at the end of the day, we got a little bit of a taste of that with Bethune-Cookman. They like to run up tempo as well. And I thought we matched them very well in the first half. I mean, granted, completely different talent. I understand that. But in terms of the tempo, it is what it is. And I think we're conditioned enough to get through it. I think the only way, truthfully, in this game, USF is going to stay in it is if they score early and often. USF has had a horrible start in their first 2 outings. I think they were only up 10-7 at the half against Boise State, and I believe they were down 6-9 playing UF last week. So first half, little shaky. They have to brush off a little bit of that rust. And I think if they don't flip that script and get going really quick, I think Miami and Carson Beck and the Canes are just going to run down that field and run down their throat. And I think that's just half of the problem for USF. I think the other half of the problem is going to be they have to hold the Canes to field goals. If you let Carson Beck score these touchdowns, you let him chalk it up to Malachi Toney or CJ Daniels, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. I mean, again, I say all of this as a stipulation that should the upset come, which I hope it doesn't, that's probably going to be the formula for success, in my opinion. But my pick going into week 3, Miami, big, 31-14. We will wait and see. We'll have the recap on Sunday, most likely Sunday night. Be sure to look out for it. Moving over to some ACC rivals that we have. We've got number 12 Clemson heading to Atlanta to face Georgia Tech. It's a noon kicker in ATL. Fun fact, Georgia Tech actually leads this series 51-36 with 2 ties between the two. Didn't know that. Kind of a cool fact. I guess that's because Georgia Tech used to be dominant in the 1940s, but I digress. It's 2025. Clemson is actually on notice after struggling in week 2 against Troy. I think you have the week 1 loss to LSU, struggling against Troy. I think Clemson's got to hit their helmet, smack themselves, wake themselves up, and get ready. Clemson better show up ready against the team that can take out anyone in the ACC. I like to think that Georgia Tech is kind of what I call the giant killers of the ACC. They can hang with almost anyone. Remember, they beat both Miami and FSU last year and took Georgia to 8 overtimes and could, for all intents and purposes, could have beaten them. So it's not like we're talking about, a weak Georgia Tech team. This is a team that's ready to compete. And then at any moment, again, based on their offensive preferences, can keep the ball away from you and run the ball and wear you down. So this isn't like Clemson 2017 or 2016 versus that Georgia Tech team. These are two teams that are very comparable. I think this is going to be a very competitive game. And here's the worst part. Clemson has struggled in the past with mobile quarterbacks. Just ask Lenore Sellers in South Carolina, So Haynes King could have himself a day. Haynes King had the week off last week. But I think that was more of a load management thing on Georgia Tech's part as opposed to an actual injury. I expect him to be back. However, Clemson has been good with stopping the run the last 2 weeks, holding opponents to an average of 100 yards, under 100 yards in both games. Georgia Tech has its own concerns on their side of the ball as well. They've had some turnover issues, 4 fumbles, 2 interceptions in the last 2 games. Georgia Tech also has been struggling on third down efficiency. They're only going 8 for 819. Not the greatest. Georgia Tech has controlled the ball better with their RPO game. They like to run that run pass offense style. Holding the ball nearly did I say 30? I put 323 minutes. It's clearly not that. I like to make sure my notes are correct, but they're holding the ball roughly for 32 minutes, 32 and a half minutes each of the games. So it's not like they're giving their opponents a lot of time to score back, but Clemson has also struggled with time of possession in both the LSU and Troy matchups. Again, they were able to come back and have a shutout second half in the Troy game, but LSU got away from them. Time of possession, I think, was an issue. Now, statistically, GT has the better offense, putting up 27 points compared to Clemson's 8.5 points per game. They even outgained them in yardage. Georgia Tech is averaging about 463 yards compared to Clemson's 288.5 yards per game. So while these numbers may be skewed because, again, both teams played inferior talent in week 2, we still have to hold the factor that GT still holds that edge in these two things. It's not like Georgia Tech has only played cupcake teams. Colorado is a Power 4 team, and they still did what they did. Now, while week 1 opponents were both P4 schools, the edge does go to Clemson, who played a drastically more talented team and tougher team, I think, in LSU compared to GT playing Colorado. Haynes King, like I mentioned earlier, is expected to make his return after taking the week off, but if he doesn't get the call, Tech should be okay because they have a great backup in Aaron Philo. For those of you Canes, you guys remember him last year in the game. The guy's a great quarterback, a little bit less of a runner, but I think he's stronger in the pocket. So it depends on which way Georgia Tech wants to kind of attack Clemson. And honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised if Georgia Tech took the same approach they took to us last year to Clemson this year, where they kind of mix it up with Haynes King. Haynes King loves to literally bash his head into defensive players. So you're going to see him down in the third and shorts, and you're going to see him running the ball as much as possible. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they called Philo in to kind of stretch the field and throw it down the field. All of that said, I really want to pick Georgia Tech because I just feel like Clemson is a wounded animal. But I'm going to go with Clemson in a close one. I think I think the experience, I think the talent, the depth on the roster will prove out. And I think Dabo will get his boys up for this game. They don't want to go down one game in the ACC. So I'm picking Clemson in a close one. I can't give a score because, God, it can go either way. It could be a low scoring game. It could be a high scoring game. I don't know, but I do think it'll be probably less than a touchdown. I'll say less than a touchdown for sure. All right, moving over to the SEC where it just means more, guys. Number 6, Georgia heading to Knoxville, Tennessee to face the number 15 Vols. These are two top 15 teams that are kicking off their conference play, and they both desperately want to win. They both want to get that first dub in conference play. And what's cool about this game and what I like about this is a game where you have two opposing coaching styles going head to head. You've got the offensive mastermind Josh Heupel scheming against the defensive wizard and Kirby Smart. It's going to be very interesting. And when you look at both teams, Tennessee has a pretty good defense as well, but their offense this year so far, and in most and to a certain point, the beginning of last year too, their bread and butter is their offense. Georgia, great defense. Great defense this year. Questionable offense. I think they might be missing Carson Beck this year. Maybe not, though. We're going to see. UGA is hoping to add a win to the win streak column for this rivalry. Currently, Georgia has beat them 8 games in a row. So not looking that great for Tennessee. Right now, Tennessee has a top 3 offense despite losing a lot of their firepower from last year and Nico Imaliava, that running back Dylan Sampson, and all their wide receivers. Few linemen they've lost also, but again, I did not have Tennessee showing up and showing out. Granted, they played East Tennessee and then they played Syracuse. Sorry, Syracuse. I had to lump you into that. And they look stellar, but I still think that this is a high octane offense. They're going to definitely not even think twice about stretching the ball. Joey Aguilar likes to do that from his time at App State. Tennessee is averaging about 39 points per game, but against UGA, it's only 14 points a game. So play great against other teams. Kirby has their number. 17 points being the most Heupel has ever taken a Georgia over this time. Joey Aguilar will absolutely have to dial it in, minimize his mistakes, and try not to force too many balls. He's been great this season as the number 9 QB in efficiency. Again, to inferior talent, to an inferior opponent. It's not like he's been playing, Notre Dame. It's not like he's been playing Ohio State. So this will be his first real test. Luckily, it's at home. And hopefully a lot of the issues that he had at App State were massaged out through Heupel and his coaching staff, and they can really set this guy up for success. It's going to be a big challenge, like I said, because Georgia's defense is stout, specifically their secondary. We got to watch the run games on both sides of the ball. I mean, everyone thinks of Heupel as this air raid guy, but we know with Sampson last year, they do run the ball, and when in doubt, they will absolutely lean on their run game over their passing game if need be. And I think whoever has the better D-line, because again, when we think of Tennessee, we often think of Heupel and his high-powered offense, but we have to remember they have a stout defense. So I think it's whichever D-line gets the most pressure on the opposing quarterback will likely be the winner in this. Here's the problem for UGA, though. Tennessee has 100% red zone efficiency, meaning they get in the red zone, they've scored every time this year. And UGA has the exact opposite problem when it comes to regards to their defense, where they're allowing their opponents to score every time they enter the red zone. So it's like, again, this is like that matchup with USF and Miami where it's like they struggle running and we're really good at running or pass blocking. It's not a good fit. You know what I mean? And if UGA can eliminate that deep threat and kind of force, Joey to make, shorter throws and to hand the ball off and stifle that, I think that will make Georgia's win very easy. I think this game, realistically, is either going to go one of two ways. It's either going to be a low-scoring slugfest where you're going to get like a 14-17, maybe a 20-17, or it's going to be a thriller shootout where we're going to see like 75 points together put up, like 35 to Tennessee or 38 to Tennessee and maybe 32 or 35 to Georgia. I mean, who knows? But I think if it's a shootout, realistically, I think Tennessee takes it. I think if it's a low-scoring slugfest, I think Georgia. But I'm going to lean, and either way, because I'm going to make a pick, I'm going to lean Georgia, and I'm going to say it's actually a slugfest. I'm going to say this is probably going to be 24, let's say 24-17. I'm going to lean on 24-17. That sounds about right. Sticking in the SEC, we had a matchup that should have been a top 15 matchup if Florida did not poop the bed. Instead, we've got this. Number 3, welcoming unranked Florida to the swamp. Listen, there's absolutely no way of sugarcoating this. Florida coach Billy Napier is coaching for his job for the rest of the season, starting with number 3 LSU in Death Valley this weekend. This is it. Florida has officially entered the playoff, not the CFP, the playoff to keep Billy Napier's job and to keep this program afloat. Like I said, this was supposed to be a competitive matchup between two historic programs. I was thinking two top 15 programs, but with UF losing to USF last week, that obviously didn't happen. With UF looking extremely pedestrian last week, LSU is the heavy favorite. LSU was really hoping, and spoiler alert, probably will, get revenge for last year's loss in the swamp. Somehow, we were in a very similar scenario last year with Billy. And when LSU came to town, it was a great stand that they made, and they were able to win one and go on a streak for Billy. And so, can that happen again this year? I don't know, but to me, that is the main storyline. I mean, I was really hoping the Gators, because there was this buildup at the beginning of the season that, Florida has one of the best O lines and they have one of the best D lines, and their defense is going to be stout. And DJ Lagway is this generational and unique quarterback that's just going to explode this year. And again, we're only in week 3. It's very, very possible that this could definitely happen. But you get the feeling around the program, the fan base. It's there's not a lot of confidence. I sense more desperation than confidence coming out of the UF community, and I think LSU DC Blake Baker really needs to dial something up to make DJ Lagway feel uncomfortable. I think if you want to completely minimize any sort of potential of UF walking out of Death Valley with a W, you just got to pressure DJ Lagway. I mean, what's crazy is LSU is number 9 in their blitz rate, first in pressure and 8th in pressure rate, meaning they love to pressure the quarterback. And they get there a lot. The problem for Florida is DJ looked super pedestrian on only 3 pressures last week against USF. So I can imagine, and I kind of already have an idea of what LSU is probably going to do. And now I know everything I've going into this preview sounds all doom and gloom, and I understand that is off a very, very small sample size. Let's look back at the beginning of the year. Let's rewind 2 weeks. Like I mentioned, UF was expected to bring a lot of people thought was a number 4 D line entering the season. Both lines were highly touted and is expected to be the best in the country, one of the best in the country, obviously not the best. But they allowed nearly 400 yards last week. That's, again, you want to believe in the potential, but like I said in my hot take this last week, you got to believe people when they tell you who they are. You got to believe someone when they shows you who they are. And statistically, there is literally no competition between these two teams. LSU holds opponents to fewer points by double digits, scores more points, has longer time of possession, has more plays a game. And I mean, you can go down the list in almost every metric. LSU has the advantage. LSU has an improved secondary. This is not the same team that they brought into the swamp last year. So it's hard for me to believe that the Gators will have that comeback and that kind of drive that they had in the swamp last year. And so I got to pick LSU, man. And I think LSU big. LSU real big. I think unless unless the Gators muster this courage and this bravado to come out and play lights out and really play for Billy's job, I just don't see it. And and something tells me when we get to, I mean, I also could see it going the other way too, where on our recap for next week that this could be a Timmy Jimmy fight, and we could see two really ugly teams struggling to eke out a win. And so again, like the Georgia game, I think it can go either way. I think this could. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a Timmy Jimmy fight, but I'm leaning LSU and LSU real big. Moving over to the last and final, I think this is the game of the week besides USF and Miami. We've got number 16, Texas A&M, traveling to South Bend to take on number 8, Notre Dame. So this is kind of going to be like one of those UF LSU games. You got to kind of ignore the numbers, right? Because again, Notre Dame played Miami week 1, got beat, took a bye week, so they've only got one game in a sample size, and it's a game they lost. On the inverse side, you have Texas A&M, who, only played UTSA, sorry UTSA, and Utah State, sorry Utah State. Neither of those teams are good starts for kind of figuring out metrics and where teams are. I think Notre Dame is really, I mean, they are trying to avoid going 0-2 for the first time since 2001. That was the last time Notre Dame went 0-2. 2001. Almost, no, I think I can say with not a single player playing in the league right now was born the last time Notre Dame went 0-2. So while statistically A&M has the advantage in almost every single category like LSU did against UF, we have to remember they played the two teams they played. Let's remember, A&M had issues traveling last year. 2 of their 4 losses last year were on the road, and they even struggled in their visits to Florida and Mississippi State. So this team does not travel well, or historically has not in recent history has not traveled well. Maybe it's different this year. Both of their other games have been at home. But let's remember, this will be a different Texas A&M than the one we saw from last year. Connor Wegman was leading the offense last year, but this year they have Marcel Reed, who hopes to get the W in South Bend this weekend. He's a drastically more dynamic quarterback than Wegman. I think he's got more potential. I think it was kind of just like a late pull for A&M last year when they decided to make him the starter. I think that should have been from the rip. For Notre Dame to catch the W, I think they need to cut the cuteness. They need to cut the cleverness and just hand the rock off to Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. What they did in the second half to Miami needs to be what goes on right off the rip, right off at kickoff. Just pound the rock. And here's the best part. Do it for your fan base, right? Because you're going home. You're good. You know, if you start that first drive off the way you started in Miami with these dink and dunk screen passes, you're going to lose the crowd fast in South Bend. They're going to start booing. They're going to recognize it. They're going to peep that. And you don't want to do that. Hand the ball off. Even if the A&M defense, which is good, stops Love and Price, at least you can say we did it. Now we have to get clever. You can still keep, even if God forbid they do lose, you can still keep your fan base in it. But again, if you're leaning on CJ Carr too much and you start getting out of what your bread and butter is and what you're good at and what your weapons are really good at, you're going to lose a team. You're going to lose your fans. It's going to get ugly really fast for Marcus Freeman. And speaking of CJ Carr, I think he looked really good against Miami. I thought he had a phenomenal start for a freshman in a hostile environment. Say what you will about Hard Rock. When we play teams like Notre Dame, it is hostile. So I thought, and it was super loud. I was there, and I thought he played, again, for a freshman on the road, great. And there's a lot, I think, that they can build off of. I think they'll hopefully get him home in a more comfortable environment. Hopefully Mike Denbrock will draw up a game plan that will build off what was successful in Miami, maybe open it up a little bit to give him some more confidence, but at the same time, keep A&M on their heels. I also think Notre Dame's defense needs to step up too, because there were parts of the Miami game 2 weeks ago where they couldn't stop the Hurricanes for anything. And again, A&M put up 554 yards on Utah State and 400 yards on San Antonio, UTSA. So this is not a slow, sputtering, stalling out offense, LSU, coming into South Bend. This is a team that will put up points, will put up yards quick and in a hurry. All of that said, with A&M holding all the advantages statistically, I think Notre Dame gets this W. I think it's going to be a super close game like last year's was. I think it was by 3 points last year. Because, but I'm not honestly confident in the Notre Dame pick. I cannot imagine Marcus Freeman allowing this team to go 0-2. I'm going to say the game goes 24-20. Notre Dame, they eke out the win. They keep their ranking, and then they run the table to try and make it into the college football playoffs. If they don't get this win, we'll talk about that in the recap. Well, guys, we've got another one in the books. Thank you all for watching. Until next week, be good, y'all. Win the weekend. And as always, go Canes.